Welcome in to the MISL Weekly Podcast. My name's Nicholas Murray. Very pleased to be joined this week by David Wagner. Welcome back, David.
Thanks for having me, Nicholas.
And Chris Economides. Welcome back again, Chris. Good to see you.
Always a pleasure, Nicholas.
And we had a very entertaining weekend this past weekend, all over at Clearwater Beach for the USL AGM. Lots of good business done for the outdoor leagues this summer, but we were also keeping an eye on everything that was going on in the MISL while we were over at the beautiful Hyatt Regency Hotel, and a couple of really big storylines this weekend. No more undefeated teams. Both the Milwaukee Wave and Syracuse Silver Knights get knocked from their perches by the Missouri Comets and St. Louis Ambush, respectively, and the Missouri Comets, they're closing the gap. They're half a game back of the Wave and the Silver Knights now at the top of the standings. What was the biggest thing you took away from the weekend's action?
Well, I'll start off. Obviously, the Missouri win against Milwaukee spoke volumes. I thought that in their first game of the season, Missouri let that game slip away. They made sure that they weren't going to make the same mistake twice. Milwaukee did come back just as they had in their first match. But Missouri held on. I think Missouri right now is probably, the class of the league, to be honest with you. Playing very, very well. Entertaining soccer by the Comets. So it really wasn't a surprising result. Step two was the St. Louis Ambush going into Syracuse and beating the undefeated Silver Knights. Great game plan by Daryl Duran to go in there. The Silver Knights had been unbeaten. And so the Ambush go in and take care of business and hand them their first loss. So that was a little bit of a surprise, to be honest with you.
Definitely impressive by the Ambush to go in and hand the Silver Knights their first loss. Silver Knights were without Michelle Millward, has to be noted, and he's been obviously a big impact player at the start of the season. But what do you take away from the Ambush and them being able to at least get a split on the road, make sure that they come back to St. Louis with a victory after the past weekend?
Yeah, I think it's tough. Anytime you're going to go on the road, you can play back-to-backs. Obviously, in MISL, it's a little bit different than outdoor because you're subbing guys, keeping everybody fresh. But I think it was really big for St. Louis to get that first win. And I think the reason is I think it's going to be a real dogfight for that fourth playoff spot this year. And so I think that's a big statement from St. Louis that this team is really starting to come together, gel a little bit more. Obviously had some difficult games early on, but I think it's really good to see them as a team to come out and get that win on the road in Syracuse, a team that's been undefeated up until this point. And then to Chris's first point, too, talking about Missouri, for me, it's just all about Leo Gibson right now and what they're doing. They're so exciting to watch, the Comets right now, and Leo's just been an absolute force.
And him and Vahid Asadpour has been excellent as well. They're very near the top of the charts as far as the scoring leaders in the MISL are concerned. At the top of the charts in the goalkeeper ranks right now is William Van Zela, who now leads the league with a 6.62 points against average after his shutout of the Rochester Lancers. He's really picked up exactly where he left off at the end of last season. The Blast had a great run at the end of last year. Van Zela was the MVP of the championship series against the Comets. Just really, really solid performances. Even in the couple of losses that they've had to the Wave, he's still come through with some big saves for them. Yeah,
anytime you're keeping a goals against average that's under that's single digits in MISL, it's pretty impressive. And even in some of the tough losses they had, like that one to Missouri or to Milwaukee early in the season, he kept them to 8 goals. Which is impressive given the offense that Milwaukee has. So, he's really standing on his head this season. He's a veteran, obviously. He's been out there. He knows what he's doing. But he's just making big saves and putting himself in great positions to close down angles.
Now, obviously, when Sagu departed the Blast, when he retired, we had questions about who was going to fill in, who was going to fill that role. Sagu's had the last shutout for the Blast back in 2010. Van Zela seems to have really filled that gap nicely in the last season and a half.
No, you know what? Credit to Danny Kelly and Kevin Healy there, to go out and find the goalkeeper. Van Zela was the MVP, remember, last year in the finals. So, obviously the kid's done, tremendously well. And they haven't missed a beat. They've gone on. They won a championship without Sagu. So, you got to give credit, obviously, to Van Zela, but also to Kevin and to Danny for finding, that type of talent.
Now, on the flip side of that, I think everyone was a little disappointed with the Lancers' performance on Friday night.
Do you think?
Quite possibly, and probably at the head of that pack was Josh Reif. But he seemed to get things turned around a little bit on Saturday night, where they come out, didn't have a very good first half again, but that second half performance against the Ambush, very impressive. Certainly feels like that if there's going to be a turning point this season for the Lancers, that could be it, because suddenly the offense was firing, they were getting the shots on goal that they needed. There seemed to be a much better energy about the team.
No, I mean, as we have spoken amongst ourselves here, you hate to categorize games as must-win this early in the season, but I think after the shutout in Baltimore on Friday, that they had to come back. And it didn't start off very well, as you mentioned. They were almost shut out at halftime. So when you go almost a game and a half and indoor, not scoring any goals, there's got to be a lot of concern there. But, hats off to Josh and the Lancers. They came back with a really strong second half and picked up a win that they had to have. And just, but by the merits of that win, they're right back in the thick of things now, chasing that playoff spot.
Still, I think they've played more games than anyone else. They've hit the 6-game mark before anybody else. But if they can get things turned around, if they can pick up a win this weekend against Syracuse and break that streak of wins that the Silver Knights have had against them, suddenly things can snowball in a bad direction. Things can also snowball in a positive direction, and that's got to be what Rochester is thinking right now. Let's put 2 to 3 wins together back to back and see where it takes us.
I think that's a really good momentum shift for Rochester. I think if you look at it, take aside some of the individual performances of the game, if you look at it more from a 10,000-foot view, both Rochester and St. Louis played 2 games that weekend, right? So you come in, second game, 2 nights in a row for both teams. Rochester plays a poor poor first half. So, theoretically, after going back-to-back games, in the second half of the back-to-back game, you should be at your absolute tired peak, right? But Rochester came out with energy, and so clearly something clicked in the locker room to get those guys where they needed to be to put that sort of performance in the second half.
Maybe Josh Reif snapped in the locker room before the second half.
Being the class act that Josh is, I can't imagine Josh uttering a nasty word, but maybe that's happening, and that's a great point, David.
Maybe just a motivating word.
Well, yes, but that's a great point. Both teams had back-to-backs, and actually Rochester probably had the tougher of the travel because they were in Baltimore. Then and talking to Soccer Sam, they got back about 5:00 in the morning.
Yep.
Where St. Louis played in Syracuse, and it's only an hour, hour and a half, from Syracuse to Rochester. So, but hats off to the Lancers, big win.
Now let's come back. Let's bring this full circle and let's go back to the Comets, because let's look a little bit deeper at this game. What impressed me most was, first of all, the performance of Brian Harris. Scores the first 2 goals, completes his hat-trick with the final tally. But the thing that impressed me most, and I think impressed you as well, Chris, was they took the 9-0 lead. They got the big lead just as they had in their first game against the Wave. Then the Wave, late in the third, just around the end of the third quarter, beginning of the fourth quarter, back-to-back 3-point goals. And suddenly it's a 9-6 game. It's effectively a 1-goal game at that point. What impressed me the most, Comets came out, didn't get flustered, and they were able to, first of all, score a goal to break the run for the Wave, but then they were able to take advantage of a very uncharacteristic turnover from the Wave. 14 seconds later, suddenly it's a 7-point game again. Suddenly they've got that cushion back, and it seemed everyone in the Independence Event Center took a little bit of an exhale there. Everything was back on track. Everything was kind of solidified again. Yeah,
I mean, look, Missouri has proved that they're in the upper echelon of this league. They've gone into Milwaukee last year. They beat Milwaukee. It's not like they fear these teams anymore. They can go into Baltimore, win in Baltimore. So they're clearly in that upper echelon of the Milwaukees and the Baltimores. Whereas the other teams still haven't really proved that they can
that gap.
Yeah, bridge that gap. So no, again, I mean that's why I said earlier on that I think Missouri right now could be the class of the league. Obviously, they haven't played Baltimore yet, and the defending champions will have a lot to say about that. But it's going to be a dogfight, and it was a very impressive win. And again, as we just mentioned, they could have easily said, "Oh no, here we go again," but they came right back. They got that next goal after Milwaukee cut it to 9-6 and closed out the game nicely.
Well, to talk a little bit more about the feeling in the locker room after Friday night's win, we got the chance to talk with Brian Harris, and that interview will be coming up just after this break. Well, we're very pleased to be joined now by the Missouri Comets Brian Harris. Brian, thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Nicholas, thanks for having me back on.
Well, first of all, congratulations on the big win, the hat trick, the first career hat trick for you this past weekend against the Milwaukee Wave. What did it mean after losing in overtime in your opening game of the season to the Wave to come back and win in such an emphatic manner against them this past Friday night?
Yeah, the first game was a heartbreaker. You never want to lose in overtime, and especially at home against Milwaukee, it's always a tough game. But to come back and beat them in the second game, it's thrilling. It's a great feeling. Go into the week of practice knowing that you knocked off the top team in the league.
What was the biggest thing you guys took away from that first meeting between the two teams? Was it just simply the emphasizing the defensive stability, and because it certainly seemed that you guys were a lot tighter at the back in the last couple of weeks than you were on that opening game?
Yeah, I think Milwaukee has a lot of firepower up front, and we got up on them. We got up on them in the first game, and I think we just got a little too complacent with where we were at. Not knowing each other, especially, for the first game of the season, seeing some new faces and taking that for granted. They took it to us in the final quarter, and you gotta tip your hat to them. But yeah, tidying it up in the back is, that's your number one priority. Don't let goals in.
You're playing for a new coach this year. Vlatko has come in, and it seems like he's doing a very good job. What's the biggest difference between him and Kim Ronved's style?
I think Vlatko, he's very technical-minded coach. With Kim saw the game differently. We had a lot of different setups in practice with Kim, but I think both were great coaches. I think Vlatko's just taking a different look, a different perspective than Kim, and we are buying into it. We're buying into what Vlatko's shown us.
What's the biggest thing you've learned from him as a player?
I think just the open-mindedness of the defense. Seeing the game a little bit differently. Vlatko was a defender when he played as well, and he kind of jumps in and says, "Hey, look at this. How do you feel about this?" And he kind of lets you decide. You decide where you want to go.
You guys have obviously gotten great production so far this year from Vahid Asadpour and Leo Gibson. What does it mean to have two players with that much experience and that much ability to lead the team?
Oh, it's great having the veterans. Especially when I first came into the league, and I was a rookie, and having the vets say, "Hey, Brian, this is what you need to do," especially not knowing the game. They see the game. They've been playing it so long. It's great having that veteran leadership out there, and especially their technical ability is fantastic. They help you out in practice. They're great in the games. It's just huge help. And I think it goes with Danny as well, being back there in the goal. You got vets all over leading us, so it's just a great atmosphere. Should be
a great atmosphere this Sunday evening. You guys host the St. Louis Ambush in a game on YouTube, and the Ambush, obviously you guys handled them pretty easily the first time out. They took you to overtime last time around before Stephen St. Louis grabbed the winner. What did you learn from that game, and what's your impression of the Ambush as an expansion franchise?
Well, I think they're led, especially with Daryl Duran, who's an absolute legend in the MISL. I think they're a great team. I really do think they got some great talented players. Their first game out there against us, it was the same with us as an expansion team. You've been playing a team that's been in the league for this many years. It's bound to happen. But them in the second game, you knew it wasn't going to be easy. And this Sunday, if you think it's going to be easy, you're pretty wrong. I'd have to say you're wrong with that. But St. Louis is a hard-working team, and they got some talented players. So you just got to be ready. You got to be on your A game.
They've obviously got some big bodies up front for you guys to contend with defensively. O'Dane Sinclair and Dan Antoniuk among them. What's the biggest challenge facing guys like that?
You better get to the gym and lift weights. No, just messing around. But yeah, you can't let guys like that body you up. If they get close to you, you're in trouble. Especially with his height advantage versus me. I'm one of the smaller guys on the team as the defender, but you just got to play it mentally smart. You just got to be in position to be ready for guys like that.
You guys are 3-1 now. You're half a game out of first place with a chance, if things fall right this weekend, to move into at least a tie for first. Do you guys feel as though you're the most talented team in the league right now?
I confidently say that we feel like we're one of the teams to be reckoned with. But you can never take that for granted. Because if you do start taking that for granted, somebody's going to knock you off, and then you're going to be looking up instead of looking down from the top.
What's the biggest thing this team has to work on as it goes through this season and approaches the playoffs?
Just keeping the momentum of doing what we do every day, and just keeping focus. Just stay focused on one game at a time. Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Well, Brian, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Good luck this Sunday night against St. Louis, and we'll be looking forward to seeing that game on YouTube.
Awesome, Nick. Thanks for having me back on, and I appreciate it.
Bye for now. Obviously very good of Brian Harris to take the time to talk to us. A great hat-trick for them against Milwaukee this past weekend. And the Comets get straight back to it this Sunday night as they host the St. Louis Ambush at the Independence Events Center. It's a 6:10 Eastern Time, 5:10 Central Time kickoff. This could be a tricky game, though. I mean, it could be a tricky game for the Comets. We saw what the Ambush were able to do at home last time, took the game to overtime, really rallied back nicely before Stephen St. Louis scored the winner for the Comets. Do we feel as though are the Ambush maybe going to give them the same trouble this time around?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some possibility. I think that the Ambush are going to come off of their win, at least in one win this past weekend, with Syracuse a little extra pep in their step. Tough one in Rochester in the second half, but you come in tired, you're on the road. I don't feel like you ever want to make excuses, but there's circumstances that they shouldn't be, too disappointed with how with the loss given the circumstances. So I think they're going to take some positives away from the road trip and roll this over, but they're going to come in, they're going to know Missouri is the team to beat, and they should be motivated for it at least.
Certainly, it's a continuation of what certainly could be a very good rivalry in the years to come.
And what's a team in St. Louis that's getting better and better, in my opinion.
Yeah, certainly is. I mean, you look at a guy, we've mentioned him before, O'Dane Sinclair. If you haven't checked it out yet, there's a very good interview with him on the St. Louis Ambush's YouTube site. So go check that out, little 5-minute spot with O'Dane that's worth watching. As a rookie, he's coming in and he's performing very well. Had 5 points in the 2 games this past weekend.
Yeah, no, he's a big boy. He's a solid player. And then as we're talking about this, I totally believe that the St. Louis is for real. They bounced back from that thrashing that they took from the Comets early on in the year. Could have easily won the game. They went into overtime. Then you travel into a Syracuse and Rochester and play as well as they did, for a game and a half, there with big win in Syracuse. So I fully expect this to be a very competitive game. Certainly I don't think the Comets are going to be looking past this, but St. Louis is playing very well right now.
This is kind of the road warrior month for St. Louis before they get back to the family arena at the very end of the month. But speaking of road warriors, we actually have a home and home series this weekend with the Baltimore Blast taking on the Pennsylvania Roar. Pennsylvania had the week off, had a chance to regroup a little bit after they're still struggling without a win this season. Baltimore obviously looked much better, looked like their regular selves against Rochester this past weekend. Is there any chance the Roar can spring a surprise here in one of the 2 games?
It's going to be tough. Baltimore's playing well right now. I think at some point that, Pennsylvania will get off the schneid and get that W, but going up against the Blast in the form they're in right now, I don't know. It's a lot to ask this weekend, but who knows, right?
The thing that's always struck me about the Blast is they have typically been the team that's been least susceptible to being upset. They always go into every game with the right attitude and the right mentality. Mm-hmm. And that's what enables them to take advantage of the expansion teams, as it were. You look at their record against the Lancers, for example, and the Blast, the Lancers have still yet to beat the Baltimore Blast in the two and a bit seasons that they've been in the MISL. So the Blast take care of games like that very well. And that's, I think, the biggest thing, that's the toughest thing that the Raw are going to have to face, is that the Blast will not take them lightly.
No, I sort of echo David's sentiments here that this has the potential to potentially get ugly. I think, Pennsylvania's growing, but they're still taking the too many men penalties. They're still...
They kind of backslid on that a little bit last time
they're still
out.
making the mistakes, that an expansion, non-indoor, personnel are going to make.
Yeah.
So hopefully, again, when you look at it on paper with Peter Pappas and Patam Myers, they've got some stability there. But obviously, when you're facing the defending champions in a home-to-home, we'll see what
I
happens.
believe I'm correct in saying Patam Myers will be back for both games of this weekend, so that'll be a nice boost after his suspension.
Yep, that's back.
So that'll be a nice boost for their defensive line for him to play alongside Chris Williams and kind of give them that stability at the back. Now, also on Saturday night, we have the continuation of the I-90 rivalry. We mentioned this earlier in the show, where Syracuse, I believe, has now won 7 consecutive games against the Lancers, won all 5 games in the series last year, won both ends of a home and home earlier this season. Can the Lancers going to be able to use last week's game as a springboard to break this streak that the Silver Knights are on?
Well, they're going to have to beat Syracuse eventually. I find it mind-boggling that they've lost 7 in a row. And I think that's a tribute to Tommy Tanner. I think, Tommy, with all due respect to the previous coaches there's been some changeover consistently. First Billy Andrecki, then Jim Hesh, now Josh. Whereas, Syracuse has had that same continuity with Tommy Tanner there. The road to the playoffs of the Lancers goes through Syracuse. So if they want to be they might have a shot to make the playoffs, they're going to have to start winning and start beating Syracuse.
I talked about that dogfight for that 4th spot before, and it's really going to come down to who has the best record, between each other amongst Syracuse, Rochester, and St. Louis. I mean, you have to win those games against those other teams. If you don't take care of, push the other teams aside. If you don't take care of your business against those 2 other teams this season, when you face Syracuse, when you face Rochester, then you're not gonna be that team. I think that's who's gonna come out on top. I'd be very surprised if the team that makes the 4th spot does not have the best record against those other 2 teams.
Exactly, and I mean that's the way it kind of panned out last season with Chicago grabbing that spot, and certainly you would expect it to unfold in a similar manner this season. As far as this weekend's 4 games, who are the guys that you're keeping an eye on? Who do you think are going to be the difference makers as far as players to watch?
For me, when we started off talking about Venzela, I'd like to see what Venzela's going to do. If he can keep up his hot form, obviously, Pennsylvania's had a tough go a little bit offensively, but it's more than just about... With indoor, it's so fast. There's so many shots. There's so many things that can go into, and you couldn't read just what kind of a season, how Venzela is doing, just based on his positioning alone. So I think going into this game, or 2 games back-to-back, I think that's key, and it's indicative of how Baltimore is going to play going forward.
I'm going to answer your question with a question, Nicholas. Is Michelle Millwood due back this week?
Well, that's the big question. I mean, if Millwood is available, that's going to make a big difference to Syracuse's lineup.
Well, that's the player that I like to see. Obviously, with Michelle in the lineup, they were undefeated. With him out of the lineup, obviously you saw what happened last week. So that's a curiosity thing that I want to see if he has the impact that we all think that he's having. And I'd be curious to see if he's playing this weekend.
Well, for me, I'm going to stick with the Syracuse-Rochester game, but I'm going to look on the Rochester side, and it's Doug Miller. Doug Miller's still yet to find the back of the net this season, and now Andrew Hoxie's out with an injury. So Rochester really needs Miller to kick into gear a little bit here. If he starts finding the back of the net, if he can bag a couple of goals this weekend against Syracuse, I think it gives the Lancers a huge chance to win that game.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the scoring from the St. Louis game, it's scoring so far, Dougie and Salas have not really been, major factors, They're getting their scoring from their secondary people, like a Pedrinho, like a Janino, or Gary Bout and Elliot Foskey.
Well.
So which is good, because if ultimately Mauricio and Dougie get on track, Rochester could be a force.
Good to see JP Rodriguez step in and have a nice game as well. Golden assist in that win against St. Louis, and certainly the goal that he scored was a very nice one. Very nice assist as well, with long range shot that just tucked in at the far post. So he seems like he's fitting in well there. Certainly someone that Josh Reif knows very well. So it'll be interesting to see the impact he has. Will he be asked to do a little bit of man marking on someone like Slavisa Ubi-Parapovic or Neto to try and hold the Silver Knights attack in check?
I'm always going to focus on the Rochester-Syracuse game anytime that those two teams play. So very curious to watch that game this weekend.
Well, that brings us to the end of this show, and that brings us to the end of this year for MISL Weekly. We'll be all off on vacation next week, but we hope you guys all have an excellent holiday period. Chris, thanks so much for joining me. Any Christmas plans? You heading out of town? Or?
Going back up home, back up to Rochester, back up to the frozen tundra that is Western New York.
So I'm guessing you'll get a chance to see a couple of games up there.
I'm going to be taking in the Pennsylvania-Rochester game up there, and then after that, unfortunately, both those teams are on the road. Syracuse actually is. But no, looking forward to being up there, and wish a happy holiday season to all of our loyal listeners. And I hear from a good source that producer Seth Witkowitz potentially may be having the podcast at his house over the holidays. So
if we end up doing that, there'll probably be a lot of mulled wine involved, and it probably won't be airable. So David, how about you? You heading out of town?
Nope, staying here, decorating palm trees. It's gonna be a good time.
Excellent, and I'll be about out and about as well down here in Tampa and a little further south with my mother-in-law in Port Charlotte. So that'll be a lovely time too. As I said, we hope you guys enjoy the action over the next couple of weeks, and we hope we'll join you again in the new year. But until then, thanks to Chris, thanks to David, thanks to producer Seth for putting all of this together, and thanks to you for listening. Bye for now.